Iceland is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. The versatile landscape and nature makes it a perfect place for photographers. There are waterfalls, mountains, glaciers, volcanoes, fascinating wildlife, and during the dark months, even northern lights. This is our 7-day road trip around the island. Before going on a trip like this, a thorough preparation is vital. To find visually pleasing spots, I use Google Maps to search along the route and mark everything interesting. For us, we've been to Iceland 3 times already. The main reason for us to visit Iceland again was to see the ongoing eruption of the newly formed Fagradalsfjall volcano. From this spot on, we drove counterclockwise around the island. Traveling by plane is always a hassle. With the whole pandemic going on, everything takes even more time. The stressful part didn't end here, however. Once we arrived, we were told there's no rental car for us. We booked a 4-wheel drive through Guide to Iceland, but they messed it up and didn't even have any backup for us. So we were forced to get a car from the airport, which was much more expensive and much smaller. That also meant no driving in the highlands for us. Still, we made it to Iceland, got a car, so it was time to start the trip. Not even 30 minutes from the airport, there already was the first spot we wanted to check out, and that's the Reykjanes Lighthouse with some awesome looking sea stacks nearby. For this scene I was using a wide-angle lens to nicely frame the sea stacks, and to capture the motion of the waves I experimented with longer shutter speeds. The best shots for me were made with an exposure around 1 second. After spending some time here, it was time to check in our hotel in Grindavik. We chose this place since it's very close to the newly formed volcano. After getting some proper food, it was time to check out the eruption site. There are currently free hiking trails and the parking situation is well organized. We chose the trail on the east side to get the best view of the eruption. A few passages of the trail are quite steep, but with the right footwear, it shouldn't be a problem to get up the hills. It's worth it to go all the way back the valley to get a beautiful view. As you can't get close to the volcano itself, you have to make use of a tele-lens. I used everything from 70 up to 300 mm, but of course I would have been happy about an even stronger zoom for this location. Day 2 started with a scenic drive through huge lava fields along the southern coast. The first stop was the Krýsuvík geothermal area. Lots of bubbling pots and funny smell. It's a cool experience walking through the area, but just don't expect award-winning landscape photos here. Right here I want to point out, sometime during our stay here, my Sony camera decided to switch from RAW format to JPEG, and I only noticed once we were back home. So shame on you Sony for doing this to me. Next we were on our way to one of my favorite waterfalls in Iceland. I'm not going to pronounce that name because that will end up in a mess. It's a little detour from Road 1 which we were following for this trip, but it's totally worth it. On the way there, we encountered the first gravel road of the trip. As long as the road is not marked as an F-road, you can safely drive on them. Even with a small car like ours. Just be a little more careful here. This waterfall ends in a vibrant blue river. Shot from the right perspective, this can lead the viewer's eye through the image. To balance the framing, there is a single mountain on the left hand side of the waterfall. Using a wide angle lens will help you to frame all of this nicely. Driving back to Road 1, we run into some problems with our tires. Seems the gravel road was taking a toll on them. Luckily, we were able to fix it on the next gas station. To continue our trip, we further followed Road 1. Along the way there are two of the most famous waterfalls, the Seljalandsfoss, a waterfall you can walk behind. Sadly, it's very crowded as it's a popular destination. And the Skógafoss, a huge rectangle shaped waterfall, again very crowded, but here you do have a better chance of capturing it without people running in your pictures. Finally, after a long day on the road, we checked in our hotel near Vik. The initial plan was to visit Möhrle the day before during sunset, since it's the perfect spot for some nice golden hour shots. Sadly, the weather wasn't right, so we started day 3 with a trip to this spot. Besides those stunning cliffs, this place also offers a great wildlife experience, as you can closely watch the famous puffins. So again, bring your telelens. Only a few kilometers further down Road 1 lies the village of Vik. This area has a beautiful black sand beach from which you can spot another set of sea stacks. Again, a longer focal length helps greatly to frame those sea stacks in a pleasing way. Continuing our trip, there was quite a stretch of road ahead. Along the way you will find many cool spots like the one canyon from Game of Thrones or a wide river with a few nice waterfalls. For us, we were in a bit of a hurry, so our next stop was the Hlynafjallsjökull glacier. Here you not only have a great view over a glacier, but you can also get really close to it. Plus, there aren't that many people around, which is always nice. Again, the conditions were far from perfect, so instead of a wide vista shot I decided to get a little closer to the glacier using my Sigma telelens. Next up, we visited another very famous tourist destination, the Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon. This place was insanely crowded, but you get to see icebergs and even seals if you're lucky. The final stretch of the road for this day brings us to Höfen, where we stayed for the night. For sunset, we have planned to visit another highlight, the Vestrahorn mountain, which is a huge playground for photographers. The conditions were very good. Although we didn't have any clouds that evening, there was enough stuff in the foreground to get some exciting shots, like sand dunes, rocks, driftwood, or even just the waves of the ocean. as this scenery is quite big, I recommend using an ultra wide angle lens. I got the best results using my Tokina 16mm. For the fourth day, there were supposed to be a lot of very good spots on the first 100 kilometers or so. Sadly though, thick fog was lingering over the landscape, making it impossible to get the shots I wanted. This was especially true for the first spot, the þjófafoss waterfall. While it was still a lot of fun exploring the area and the image I got is still okay, would there have been no fog, the picture would be so much better. Then on the next spot, I didn't even try to get the shot. The Valnes Nature Reserve is a long stretch of beach. From this point you get a nice view of a small mountain range. Well, of course, if it's a clear day at least. Continuing our drive up north, we left Road 1 to get on a little more scenic route. It turned out the road we chose was yet again another gravel road. Again, not a big deal, even in a tiny car, just pay a little more attention to oncoming traffic. At this point the weather cleared up and we got greeted by a great view. After getting back on Road 1, it was a long stretch of rather boring landscape. Here and there were a few interesting spots, but nothing worth exploring the area more. Another 2 hours of driving have passed until we got close to the next location, the enormous þjófafoss waterfall. Before getting there, however, we had to tackle 30 kilometers of really bad gravel road. This was by far the worst drive of the trip, but seeing this gigantic waterfall was totally worth it. No matter which focal length you use or have with you, there are many cool pictures to be taken. So enjoy! Back on the main road, there's one last spot for us to visit for the day, another geothermal area with lots of cool bubbling pots and steaming rock piles. For this area I used my widest lens. This helps to get every part of the bubbling holes in the foreground while also having the rest of the landscape in the back of the picture. Shortly after we got back on the road, the first spot of the day made its appearance in the distance. The Grindavik waterfall. Surely another highlight of the trip, but since we were here in bright daylight, the images turned out to not be that spectacular. Still, it's worth spending time here to enjoy this beautiful waterfall. Further along the road I have marked a few interesting spots in my Google Maps document. There's a mountain lake as well as a small canyon close to Road 1. But the sunny weather just made those scenes worse and we decided to just skip them. Instead, we drove straight to the guest house where we stayed for the night. A few kilometers north of it is a very remote lighthouse, which also seems to be not that well known among us photographers. This for sure was one of the spots I was looking forward the most, as it is a perfect place to capture the sunset. Strange looking rock formations offer the perfect leading line to the subject, the lighthouse. It's a rather wide scene, so again I was using my 16mm lens to capture it all. On day 6 we had another long stretch of road ahead. We followed Road 1 almost all the way to Reykjavik, but then took a turn up north to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. This was yet another awesome drive as the road goes through huge lava fields. Before arriving at our hotel, we got a glimpse of the iconic Krýsuvík mountain as we drove past it. As we planned to visit this particular spot during sunset, we went straight to the hotel however. As it turned out, this has been a mistake. As the day went on, more and more fog rolled in from the sea. When it was finally sunset time, the fog was so thick, the mountain wasn't visible at all. Instead of wasting more time, we decided to give it another try at sunrise. So only 5 hours later we were standing in the exact same position as yesterday evening, but still heavy fog everywhere. We waited a bit longer, tried to sleep for a bit in the car, and finally it seems the fog was getting thinner. Although the sunrise colors were long gone, seeing the peak of the mountain coming through the fog was a majestic view, and I tried my best to capture it. Again, a wider lens is recommended for the scene. It was time to head back south to Reykjavik. We decided to take the long way around the Snæfellsnes Peninsula to check out a few more locations. Right out of Ólafsvík, the village where we stayed, there's a small church in front of a mountain range with a straight road leading towards it. Luckily for us, the weather was super grim, so I got out my telelens and zoomed in on the church. Using a long exposure, I also captured the motion of the clouds and thus giving it a very cool effect. Continuing our way through a few more lava fields on the south side of this peninsula, there are a few very cool cliff faces along the shore. During the daytime, it might not be the most photogenic scene, but it's a very short detour, so we just had to stop here. Finally, we headed south, close to the airport where we stayed for the last 2 nights. So here we are, faster than expected, the last day has arrived and we absolutely wanted to check out the volcano once more. During the time we were in Iceland, the eruption had a pattern, so only a few hours every few days the eruption was going on. Luckily for us, it was quite active that day. We didn't waste any time and headed straight to the eruption site. It certainly isn't as impressive during the day as it's during the night, but seeing the eruption in daylight is still one of the most awesome things to witness. Also, it felt much safer hiking up and down the steep hills in daylight. Again, the telelens is your best friend to get you close to the lava. Please don't be stupid and try to walk across the hardened lava towards the eruption. No one will be coming to your rescue if you break through. Finishing this trip with another awesome day, seeing the volcano erupting, this concludes our trip to Iceland. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about Iceland or locations or other things, let me know in the comments and I will try to answer them. And thank you very much for watching this video.